comes to English humor.
Like everyone else gets the joke, but you're left wondering what's so funny.
Exactly. Well, today, we're going to change that.
We're diving deep into the world of English jokes.
And we're using this really interesting podcast script as our guide.
By the end of this deep dive,
You'll not only understand those jokes,
but you might even start telling some of your own.
so think of it like unlocking a secret code.
The code of English humor.
Our source material really breaks down why English humor can be tricky for non-native speakers.
So let's start there.
What makes those jokes so hard to crack sometimes?
Well, the script points out humor often relies on multiple layers.
Simple players.
Yeah, things like wordplay, cultural references.
And even double meanings.
Exactly. You might know all the words
But the joke still goes over your head.
because you're missing one of those layers.
Okay, so it's more than just vocabulary.
Right.
Can you give us an example of how these layers come together in a joke?
Absolutely. Think about this classic why joke. Okay.
Why don't skeletons fight each other?
Why don't they?
Because they don't have the guts.
Because they don't have the guts.
Yeah, now at first it might seem straightforward, but the humor's in the double meaning of guts. It can refer to bravery,
Right.
but also to literal intestines, which, of course, skeletons don't have.
It's a pretty clever play on words.
It is. And you mentioned cultural references, too.
Yeah. How does that factor into English humor?
Well, culture plays a huge role.
I can imagine.
Like, think about British versus American humor.
Okay.
A British comedian like Ricky Gervais,
Oh, I love him.
he's known for his dry wit, making fun of himself in awkward situations,
All right.
whereas an American comedian like Kevin Hart,
Very different style.
yeah, he uses a lot of energetic storytelling and
You
exaggeration.
both are funny
Absolutely.
in such different ways.
Exactly. So even if you understand the language,
You need to know the culture behind the joke to really get it.
you got it.
It's like needing a decoder ring. That's a great way to put it.
Now, our source material actually breaks down different types of English jokes.
Which is perfect because...
Yeah, this feels like a good place to start unraveling some of those comedic threads.
Absolutely. And they start with puns.
Puns.
Those groan-worthy but kind of delightful wordplays.
Yeah, they can be so bad they're good.
Exactly.
So what kind of pun do they use as an example?
They use a food-themed one.
Okay, I love food puns.
What do you call fake spaghetti?
Fake spaghetti.
The answer is an impasta.
An impasta.
Yeah,
Oh, imposter, but with a pasta twist.
exactly. So puns are all about that unexpected connection between words.
That element of surprise.
Yeah, it's like solving a little puzzle.
Now, moving on from puns.
Our source goes into those timeless classics, knock-knock jokes.
Knock-knock jokes.
It might seem a bit corny,
They are kind of corny.
but they're such a playful part of English.
I agree. It's like a little ritual.
A fun back and forth.
And the script includes a knock-knock joke as an example.
Want to try it out?
Okay, here goes. Knock-knock.
Who's there?
Lettuce.
Let us who?
Let us in. It's cold out here.
The classic knock-knock structure.
I know, right?
The humor comes from the unexpected twist, using lettuce to sound like lettuce.
It's silly.
But that's part of the charm.
And it highlights how important wordplay is to English humor.
Absolutely.
But shifting gears a bit,
Okay.
our script also dives into a type of humor that can be tricky.
Tricky.
Yeah, sarcasm.
Sarcasm.
It's less about the words themselves.
And more about the tone.
Exactly.
Like the way they're delivered.
The script gives the example of someone saying, "Oh, great, another rainy day."
But their tone of voice makes it clear they're not thrilled.
You can practically hear the eye roll,
Exactly. It's saying one thing.
but meaning the opposite.
Right, and that's why sarcasm can be so confusing.
Because you have to read between the lines.
You have to pay attention to the speaker's tone of voice.
Maybe even their facial expressions.
To really grasp the sarcastic intent.
So we've talked about wordplay, cultural references,
And those subtle layers of sarcasm.
and even explored a few common joke types.
Oh, we have.
But how can our listeners actually get better at understanding and appreciating English humor?
Well, our source material has some great tips.
And that's what we'll be exploring in the next part of our deep dive.
We'll delve into some practical advice.
On how to train your ear,
Your mind,
and even your vocabulary.
to become fluent in the language of English humor.
This is where things get really practical.
It is.
We're going beyond the theory.
And into the real world of cracking those jokes.
So stay tuned for part 2, where we unlock the secrets to mastering English humor.
It's going to be fun. Welcome back to our deep dive.
Into the world of English humor.
So far, we've explored why English humor can be tricky.
Yeah, and we've even dissected a few jokes.
But now it's time for the exciting part.
I know, right? The practical stuff?
Exactly. Practical strategies you can use to actually get better at understanding English jokes.
I feel more confident.
Exactly. So the script lays out a three-part approach.
A three-part approach. Okay, I'm listening.
And the first one is consistency.
Okay, consistency. So we're talking about making a conscious effort.
Yeah, to engage with English humor regularly.
Like making it part of your routine.
Exactly. It's like learning any new skill.
Right.
You wouldn't expect to become fluent in a language by just studying once a month.
That's true. You got to immerse yourself.
Exactly. Surround yourself with it.
And our source material specifically recommends watching English sitcoms.
Oh, yeah. Good ones like Friends, The Office, Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
They're classics for a reason.
They really are.
But what makes sitcoms so special for learning humor?
Well, they're like crash courses in comedic timing,
delivery,
and those all-important cultural references.
Plus, they show humor in those everyday situations.
The kind you'll encounter in real life.
So it's not just about the jokes themselves.
It's about observing how people actually use humor in their interactions.
That makes a lot of sense.
And here's a pro tip.
Okay, tell me.
Don't just passively watch. Rewatch episodes.
Rewatch?
Yeah, pay attention to those little things.
Like what?
The characters' reactions, the pauses, even their facial expressions.
Each time you watch, you might notice something new.
Exactly. It's like studying a painting.
You see new details with every glance.
Right. Now, the second tip builds on that idea of being more active.
Okay, more active, Alan.
By being curious.
Curious.
Yeah, ask questions when you don't understand something.
This is where I struggle. I hate feeling like I'm missing the joke.
But that's okay. There's no shame in not getting it.
Especially when you're still learning the language.
Right. Asking questions shows that you're engaged, you want to learn.
So instead of feeling embarrassed,
see it as an opportunity.
An opportunity to learn.
And to connect with the person telling the joke.
That's a much better way to look at it.
It is. Plus, it can lead to a richer conversation.
So it's like having a native speaker as your guide.
Yeah, through that jungle of English humor.
I like that, a guide through the jungle.
They can help you see those hidden paths, explain the landmarks.
So next time I miss a joke, I'll remember it's a chance to learn.
Exactly.
Now, what about that third tip? You mentioned expanding our linguistic toolkit.
Ah, yes, the power of idioms and expressions.
Those phrases that don't mean what they literally say?
Right, they have a figurative meaning.
Like, kick the bucket.
Doesn't actually involve kicking anything.
Right, it means someone has died.
Exactly. And the script highlights how important it is to understand these idioms.
Because so many jokes use them.
They do.
It's like having the password to a secret world.
A world of laughter.
And without that password, you're missing out.
You are. They give another example with the phrase, spill the beans.
Spill the beans, that's a good one.
Literally, it means dropping some beans.
Right.
But we use it to mean revealing a secret.
So if someone says spill the beans, what happened at the party?
They're not talking about a messy kitchen.
Definitely not.
So that's why learning idioms is so crucial.
The more you know, the better you'll get at decoding those jokes.
Exactly.
It's like we're not just learning vocabulary.
We're learning the culture behind the language.
Which brings us back to something we talked about earlier.
About how different cultures have different senses of humor.
Right. What's funny in one culture might not be funny in another.
Exactly.
The script talks about British versus American humor.
But those are just two examples.
In a whole world of humor.
It's like realizing there are all these different styles of music.
You might love jazz, but someone else might prefer classical.
And there's no right or wrong.
It's just different tastes.
Exactly.
Humor's subjective.
Shaped by our backgrounds and experiences.
It is. And that makes me wonder...
About what?
Are there any universal elements of humor that go beyond culture?
Or is it all relative?
That's a great question, and one that has fascinated people for ages.
I bet.
While there might not be specific jokes that everyone finds funny,
right,
there are some comedic principles that seem to resonate across cultures.
Like things like surprise, incongruity, the violation of expectations.
Ah, I see.
So even if the specific jokes are different,
the underlying mechanisms might be more universal.
Exactly.
That's fascinating. It makes exploring humor in other languages even more interesting.
It does. It's a way to connect with people on a deeper level.
To understand their worldview.
And to broaden our own.
So as we keep going with our English humor deep dive,
let's keep that cultural lens in mind.
It'll help us appreciate the jokes even more.
It will. Now, ready for some more practice?
You know it. Bring on the jokes. Welcome back to our deep dive. It feels like we've uncovered so much about English humor.
We've gone from those basic joke types like puns and sarcasm
to the cultural side of things.
Like how different cultures find different things funny.
But now it's time to put all that knowledge to the test.
You mean?
With some more jokes.
Oh, I'm ready for the challenge.
Okay, so this one comes straight from our source material.
Okay.
Why did the Scarecrow win an award?
A scarecrow winning an award.
I'll give you a hint. The answer's hidden in plain sight.
Hidden in plain sight. Okay, let me think.
It has to do with the word outstanding.
Outstanding, no. Because he was outstanding in his field.
You got it.
I see what they did there.
It's funny because outstanding can mean exceptional.
Deserving of an award.
Exactly.
But it also literally means standing out in a field.
Which is exactly what a scarecrow does.
It's that double meaning that makes it work.
It's like the joke is playing a trick on you.
It is. It makes you think in a different way.
Okay, ready for another one?
Hit me with it.
All right, here's a classic. Why did the bicycle fall over?
Why did the bicycle fall over?
This one also plays on a word with two meanings.
Okay, two meanings. Let me see. Was it something about being too tired?
You got it again. It fell over because it was too tired.
Haha, very clever.
It makes you think about the word tired in two different ways.
Exhausted and relating to the tires of the bicycle.
Exactly. And that's what makes it funny.
It all comes back to those double meanings and wordplay.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into English humor, what are some key takeaways for our listeners?
Well, the biggest one is that understanding humor takes time.
You can't expect to get every joke right away.
Especially in a different language.
It's a process.
Exactly. So be patient with yourself.
And keep practicing.
And remember those tips we talked about?
About watching sitcoms, rewatching scenes.
And asking questions when you need to.
Those are great ways to improve.
They are. And one more thing.
What's that?
Remember that humor is influenced by culture.
Right, so what's funny in one culture might not be funny in another.
It's important to keep that in mind.
To avoid any misunderstandings.
You got it. Now, to leave our listeners with something to think about.
Okay, I like this part.
Think about the humor in your own language.
What makes you laugh?
What are the common joke types?
Are they similar to English humor?
Or are they totally different?
That's a great question to ponder.
It is, and it can help you understand both languages and cultures even better.
So to all our listeners out there, keep practicing, keep laughing.
And keep exploring the world of English humor.
It's a journey full of surprises, and you might even learn something new about yourself along the way.
Until next time, keep practicing and stay confident.